that time of the year when ghouls and goblins and vampires and ghosts make an appearance. Well, actually, that's what happens every Wednesday when Stefan wakes up and comes and records a show. Hello, everyone. It's Legends and Champions. It's the Halloween special. And we're doing it very different this week because we're not going to be talking about Halloween moments. We're not going to be talking about Halloween Havoc. We're not even going to be talking about The Undertaker. We're going to be talking about a performer who passed way before his time, but is also one of the, in my opinion, one of the most underrated performers in history, but had the potential to be one of the biggest players in the industry. I am, of course, talking about Windham Rotunda. So this show is all about the legacy of Windham Rotunda. We are going to be touching on the Fiend. We are going to be touching on Husky Harris, and we are going to be touching on Bray Wyatt. Stefan, first of all, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm noticing the change in the weather, as our listeners probably know, that for a probably run of shows, we was complaining about how hot, how ungodly hot it was at times. Now it's getting colder and very wet outside, so I'm getting a little excited that we're heading towards winter now. So, yeah, I'm
It,
quite pleased about that.
it is the end of October
It
as you
is,
listen to this.
yeah,
It's the middle of September as we record this.
it is.
Breaking that fourth wall
And
again.
again,
Cut. Um, Before we get into this, you actually asked to do this show. You when we were
yes.
planning the shows out, you said to me, "Oh, um, is there any chance we can do a Wyndham Rotunda?" And we weren't planning to do this one. We were going to be doing a couple of Halloween Havocs, and then we
Yeah.
changed that. We're going to break. We're going to talk about Celebrate Wrestling in just a second. But why did you want to do this show specifically?
Okay, so basically, you know, as you said, just alluded to, we were going to do a run of shows on Halloween Havoc, and I was going through the Halloween Havocs and thinking, do you know what? Even though the name Halloween Havoc is memorable, there are actually a lot of Halloween Havoc shows that aren't very memorable, or not, or there's only like one major like talking point. And I've been thinking about Wyndham quite a bit lately because of, obviously his brother Taylor, Bo Dallas, and the White Six have been sort of having a very strange run in the WWE at the moment. And I actually had a personal rant with a friend of mine where I was saying, do you know what? It appears that the WWE are making similar errors with the White Six that they made with Bray with his career. Where they aren't utilizing them properly. They spend too much time off screen. Not, that they don't ever seem to quite just let them have the ball and run with it in a creative direction. This is something which is going to be quite prominent when we get into this show. And I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking, you know what? What sort of character was Bray Wyatt? He was, this creepy, the new face of fear and that. And I was thinking, well, we've got Halloween coming up soon, maybe, we should talk about Bray. Let's talk about Wyndham and that and get that out there because I should imagine, there's quite a few people out there that may listen to this show, that probably having similar feelings about the way that the White Six are being used on television at the moment, and probably also thinking about Bray quite a bit as well.
I
So
mean, it's interesting when you kind of say that, isn't it? Because I remember back to 2023 at All In, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, um, with the tribute to Bray and the Fireflies being
yeah,
done. And what we've got to kind of say here is, the Wyatt Six, it is a weird booking. We don't know by the time you air this what's happening with the Wyatt Six. We
yep,
know at the moment they are WWE Tag Team Champions. We know at Worlds Collide, that took place earlier in September, that basically they're making a play for the AAA Tag Team titles. So I see where they're going, but I get your point.
no,
Let's do it, shall we? Let's talk about um, Wyndham Rotunda, because really it's impossible to kind of tell his story without acknowledging the dynasty. And what I always find interesting with professional wrestling is we generally only talk about two families, the Harts and the Rhodes. You've also got the Von Erichs, but you've
Hmm.
also got the Rotundas. And it was only a couple of weeks ago when we did the show on Bobby the Brain Heenan that we mentioned the Blackjacks and Blackjack Lanza. But Blackjack Mulligan, a 6'9", 300-pound American football player, was his grandfather.
Yeah.
He feuded with the likes of Andre. His father, Mike Rotunda, who everybody knows as IRS, as the taxman, was a former World Tag Team Champion with Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
He was a
Yeah.
member of the US Express. His uncles, the legend, the absolute legend, Barry Windham, Kendall Windham. Barry joined the Horsemen, for God's sake. And as you
Yeah.
mentioned, Bo Dallas would become Uncle Howdy. It, but I think with any wrestling dynasty, as much as that's good, it's also a double-edged sword, right? Because you're always living in that shadow of what did the family do. And we saw
Mm.
that, if you want to put a good case in point, we saw that with a very young Rocky Maivia, who was always in the footsteps of High Chief Peter Maivia or even Rocky Johnson. To a degree, we saw that with Cody Rhodes, who was always in the shadow of the American Dream, and Dustin. Owen was Owen Hart was the big one in the Hart family, who was always in the shadow of his brother Brett. So what do you do with that? How do you break out of that? You revolutionize yourself.
Absolutely, you stand out. You do something that stands out that from the others. You have to kind of get there on your own. You know, yes, sometimes in wrestling we do know that sometimes your name, the name that you carry, the legacy that you carry, can get you so far in a bit in the business. Sometimes you know it kind of you get the platform. It's good enough to give you a platform, but what you do with that platform you know, is what's important. And also that in itself is a double-edged sword as well, because, you know, as we've seen, and case in point, this probably, you know, does relate to Windham very much so, is even though when you're given a platform, sometimes you can be stifled and limited and held back. Um, and that also can be more, you know, just as damaging as, you know, not breaking out on your own from the family name sort of thing. So but as we're going to unravel the life and career of Windham Rotunda, I mean, it's gonna, you know, we're going to talk about just what a unique, amazing mind, personality, human being that Windham Rotunda was.
Absolutely, because why do we do this? I don't know why we do this every week, but we look at these performers and we go, "Well, they didn't have the body of Hulk Hogan, and they didn't have the body of the
Mm,
Icon Sting." But Wyndham may not have, but what he was an absolute formidable athlete. He was a star in high school on the amateur wrestling mat. He became state champion in 2005. Just 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 put that into perspective, right? 2005, Wyndham Rotunda was a state wrestling champion. We are now in 2025. How much this youngster achieved in his career before his timely passing, and obviously, what else would he have done? Um, he was a football player. He was impressive on the gridiron. He played his defensive tackle. He earned a scholarship to Troy University. He had did 2 seasons there. He left college just 27 credits shy of a bachelor's degree. This guy had the brains, right? And we could see that. And he went to pursue his career of professional wrestling, his passion. But just like John Cena said on the recent episode of Raw, playing football and getting your ass handed to you day in and day out set you up to get in the ring. And that is where we go to now because Wyndham Rotunda leaves college and joins FCW. For those of you who don't know what FCW was, that was the precursor to NXT, Florida Championship Wrestling, run by Skinner.
yeah. Yeah, it's what OVW originally was used for with the WWE. It was that developmental. It was FCW is basically NXT before NXT was NXT before it became NXT as we know now. So
But hang on a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So before NXT before NXT 3.0, there was NXT 2.0, which was the
yeah,
multicolored abysmal
yeah.
creation. Before NXT 2.0, there was NXT Black and
Black
Gold.
and Gold, the best NXT era.
Before NXT Black and Gold, there was NXT.
Yeah,
Before NXT, there was that really crappy reality
awful.
show, which
Yeah,
we are going to be touching on in a minute. And
yeah,
before NXT, the crappy reality show, there was Florida Championship Wrestling.
yeah.
Wow,
Exactly.
that's a lot of development territories over the
That
years.
is, and you know that's. I mean, we'll at some point probably at this rate in 2028 do a show on actually on the evolution of NXT.
Oh God, I'm already starting to book shows for 2027, so don't do that.
So, but yeah, and yeah, it's. I mean, when you got into FCW, obviously we know originally um, the big names that were in FCW. You know, you had the likes of Shame. I mean, actually, I'm not even going to go through the list. I mean, everyone knows, but a lot of talent that you see either in AEW, TNA, or in WWE had a stint at some point in the sort of mid 2000s, late 2000s in FCW.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Paige being one of them, Saraya,
Roman Reigns,
Roman
you know,
Reigns.
they've
I
all
mean,
did,
yeah,
yeah, they all did it.
the prototype John Cena also made an appearance there
Yeah,
as
I
well.
really do wish that the WWE, before they'd stopped releasing home videos, or DVDs, Blu-rays, and whatnot, I really do wish that they had at least to put on the network or Netflix their FCW shows because there's some absolute, like to quote Sheamus, bangers
I
on that
think it.
match
I think it's.
on that show.
I think it's coming.
I hope.
Because the NXT Vault on YouTube. I mean, I tell you what, change. Just we've got to do this. The WWE Vault on YouTube, the WCW channel, and the NXT channel are my go-to YouTubes. They are incredible, and it's the network on YouTube. But the
But
most
with ads,
with ads, unless you play YouTube Premium, which I think is
yeah.
£3.99. But the most recent upload, big upload on the WWE Vault is Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling cartoon.
I know, I love
Every
it,
episode. I
I
mean,
love it.
remastered. But the NXT ones are brilliant because even though you've got Netflix, they have released every NXT takeover or PLE that they've done. They've released the Moolah, the Mae Young Classic. They've released classic NXT episodes in order.
Yep,
So I think they're coming. The
I hope so.
WCW one is they are releasing WCW PLEs in a fashion, but they've also releasing every Clash of Champions in order, every Nitro, and every Thunder because they're not going to
do,
be on Netflix.
do you know? I just realised. Do you remember when you and I, because so our listeners know, we used to do a show called Go on, you can name drop it. What did we used to do? The
Can you not remember the
square.
fact we used to do the squared
Yeah, it's the
circle?
squared circle. Yeah, I'm just you know.
You forgot, didn't you?
No,
You
I was
did.
just
You
saying. I
forgot.
was
You
just gonna
forgot. You
get you.
forgot.
And what was
You forgot.
one rule we always had?
We
We
weren't going
would
to call
never ever.
pay-per-views PLEs.
PLEs. And what are we doing now?
Calling them
We
PLEs.
exactly. Damn it.
But that seems to be but that's become the standard term now,
Yeah.
hasn't it? It's like pay-per-view
It was quite
stories, a
fresh back then,
PLE.
wasn't it? It was new back then, wasn't it? When we said no, this is
What
a no PLE.
the fact that TNA are now calling their events PLEs.
I know.
I mean, I'm expecting AEW to call them MLEs,
Uh,
Max Live events, because they're on
yeah,
HBO Max. Anyway, where were we going with that?
yeah. We was just touching in FCW. He was in FCW.
Oh yeah, and yeah, wow, that took me off on a completely different tangent there. He was under FCW, but he was a very generic
Mm.
character. He either went by the name of Alex Rotunda or Duke Rotundo, but he partnered up with Bo Dallas, Taylor Rotundo, and they captured the FCW championships on two separate occasions. But it was this NXT reality show where he kind of got his first foray into the main roster. But let's be frank, it was the crappiest series and the most dead end creative
Mm.
anybody had ever done.
It was more. It was almost just ridiculing them, almost, wasn't it? It was, I mean, there's that little part of me, and I'll never get on board with it. There's always this little part of me that eats away at me, just tries to convince myself it was always a test, like to see, like if they were willing to make themselves look stupid and do absolutely everything, then Vince might take some sort of favorite with them, and maybe that is the case with some of them were concerned, but it was very strange because I like the concept, but it was the most catastrophic of delivery with this NXT that they had. The fact that you had a rookies, which Windham was one, Brian Danielson was also another one, and they had a pro.
Season.
Yeah,
in the first season,
yeah, they had a pro. Which you had people like The Miz on there and R-Truth and all these different people, and the concept was great, but the execution was absolutely dreadful. Like, you watch it, you go, "Oh, what's this?" You watch it and you go, "What am I watching?" And the crowd always looked bored.
I mean, when you think about the show that NXT reality replaced was WECW, which was already in the gutter, right? And they replaced it with the NXT game show. And one of the segments that I remember the first season, one of the segments they did was the assault course. And they had to kind of jump over tires and run around the ring and then get back. But then at the end of the episode, the pros would vote somebody off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, I want to say it was groundbreaking. And it was groundbreakingly crap.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the modern day, like WWE LFG that they have going on now, and, scripted parts aside, that would have worked, I think, a bit better.
Let's be honest. LFG is tough enough for 3.0.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But then again, I always loved Tough Enough. Like the first sort of 2 series of it, I enjoyed. Then it just got bad.
When they moved it to SmackDown, it got awful. And then when they rebooted it with Jericho, But let's talk about the character in NXT, because we're going off a massive diverts here. Let's talk about the character of Husky Harris. What can you really say about Husky Harris?
I would say what I've always referred to. Didn't understand the name, didn't know who he was trying to be or who they wanted him to be. As you said, like alluded to, when he was in FCW, it was very generic. There was always, maybe it was the look he had, which obviously we didn't know back then was going to evolve into who he became, but he had this look about him, this intensity in his eyes, this thing about him. There was kind of like some form, kind of a mystique about his look, his face, his eyes. And, you didn't, it was one of those ones where it's like, this guy's got something. You need to tap into that because this isn't working. This doesn't make sense. I don't actually know what I'm looking at, like who I'm watching here. But what really impressed me was his athleticism, as you said, and they used to refer to that on the show. He was a tank with a Ferrari engine. He was wouldn't say big guy, but he was a, stocky guy that had speed and agility.
Do you think that and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, right? So we often use the term he was ahead of his time, right?
100%.
The Husky Harris character at this point had nothing about it. But what you've just said there, big guy, athletic, kind of generic, that reminds me of Bronson Reed. So if Husky Harris was in today's WWE, do you think it would have worked?
Possibly. I don't think he was. To see, this is a very interesting thing. As Husky Harris, he was not good on the microphone. You would not think that guy would evolve into who he became and how phenomenal he would become in promos and on the mic as a talker and believable. I also think the first thing that I noticed, like when he wouldn't say anything, but when the camera would do like a close up of his face and his eyes would be fixated on something as though he was listening to someone. When I talked about that intensity, the first thing that clicked with me was going, he's got a little bit of Jake Roberts about the way, like the way his eyes seem to have this intensity. Like, and then I used to think, oh, it's a shame he doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence in the way he talks on the mic. And I said, if he had, we say about maybe being, ahead of his time, I think if they had got the correct sort of gimmick for him in the Attitude Era and back when a lot of wrestlers did have more control over their creative direction, Austin, The Rock, prime examples, Mick Foley, he could have, if he'd come along a lot sooner in the Attitude Era, he could have been a major player then. I think it would have worked. I think it kind of, when he came in, he kind of missed that boat. It was, you know what I mean? Because the thing with WWE, or it's too late,
or in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with WWE. It's always been a constant, is they seem to go in these eras on, you get these people, these characters, these gimmicks that come along, and it's like they feel a little bit out of place. Like they would, if you was to place them at any point in history or the future, and that you would go, they would be perfectly placed there. They come along at the wrong time. And I think that's a similar thing with maybe what's going on with the Wyatt Six, is there's not a lot of other factions about or anything really for them all to really work with.
Let's be frank, it's not 1997.
No, it's not.
It's not 1997 when we had
rules, baby.
It was, yeah, that was one word for it. But just going back to that thing about Husky Harris, because on paper he was everything McMahon loved. Big, athletic, could go. And we've talked this year alone about some of the big guys that McMahon did try and put a rocket behind. Nelson Frazier, Mabel being one of them, right? Yokozuna being one of them because of the fact that he was this big guy. But he just didn't click. And part of that, I think you have to blame Rotunda for not getting behind the character. Because if you look, you said when you look into his eyes, you could see the Jake Roberts. What I could see towards the end was, if you looked at him, you could look at someone who had given up. And you could see someone that couldn't split the character from real life, and was like, I'm fed up in real life and I'm fed up in the ring. And you could see that. And I think you could see that up until the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in October of 2010, right? Because him and Michael McGillicuddy, another stupid name, Joe Hennig for us, or Curtis Axel as he would get repackaged, had joined Wade Barrett's faction, the Nexus. They interfered in the match that Barrett had with the GOAT, John Cena. But only a couple of months later, at the end of January in 2011, on an episode of Monday Night Raw, he got a punt to his head, courtesy of the Viper, Randy Orton. This was the way to get him off TV. It was a creative death. The character had run its course. But this punt to the head, this creative disaster, if you will, was the beginning of this metamorphosis. For him to go back to FCW at this point in his career was the best thing, because in April of 2012, not only did the opportunity that he had been waiting for arrive, but what was about to change professional wrestling also occurred.
Yeah, I think you're right, because obviously, he was written off of Raw, as you said, after the punt kick to the head from Randy Orton, and he went back to FCW for a little while. I think it was about just shy of a year or something like that. And, and there were people, like Damien Sandow was in there at the time. And I remember, do you know, and I'm just going to name drop someone on this as well. Remember Adam Rose? Do you know what the biggest mistake they made with him was not pushing the Leo Kruger gimmick? That guy was like Skinner, but more sadistic and more creepy. And that worked. And I do still maintain he could have actually have had a better career if they'd stuck with the Leo Kruger gimmick a bit longer.
Do you know what? If you talk about the Wyatt family,
Mm.
Kruger would have worked as one of
Would have been
as one of the
perfect.
Wyatt
Yeah.
followers. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because that's the way it's kind of, you look at the White Six now and the story that built up to the White Six, where they were all talking about these guys, these wrestlers that had lost their way, that they were kind of felt abandoned by the company and by creative and all that. Like, they all felt lost, and as Bo or Uncle Howard, who said, they were lost, but now they are found. They found their way where they belong and stuff like that. And I think that's the thing with what they could have done with the Wyatt family, essentially, was an act like a band of misfits that they didn't seem to fit anywhere, but they fit together. And that's your power fuel. That's your fuel that guides you, sort of thing. But April 2012, I remember seeing a clip, because we didn't have, and we've never really had much exposure of FCW here in the UK, which is one of the things that always griped on me. But I remember seeing pictures of Windham dressed as Bray with his Hawaiian shirt and his white trousers and that, and I looked and I was like, he reminds me of someone. God, like the white pants and the vest and the Hawaiian shirt. It reminds me of Waylon Mercy. And straight away, that got my attention, because even though Dan Spivey didn't really have much of a run as Waylon Mercy, he sort of wrestled one pay-per-view show, did a couple of did a few matches here and there, and then he was done. Never took off. His video packages, which were, I think, loosely based on Robert De Niro's character from Cape Fear, which is a great movie that I really enjoy, caught my attention. I really wanted the Waylon Mercy gimmick to really take off. I was on board with all of that. So when I see Windham like that, I was like, okay, I need to know a little bit more about this guy. And and I went online and was doing a little bit, and obviously on YouTube they had some clips and stuff like that. And straight away I was sold. I was like, oh, like Husky Harris doesn't look disinterested, lost and bored now. And then when you see like that intensity that I spoke about, that I could kind of see in his face, in his eyes prior as Husky Harris, straight away I was like, there's something here. Please, for the love of God, do not let this go amiss. Do not mess this up.
Do you know what the saving grace for Rotunda was in this era? Was Triple H.
Yeah.
Because NXT Black and Gold at this point was being run by Hunter. It was being run by Regal. It had Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, involved in it. And I think if they hadn't have been there, you wouldn't have seen this.
No.
Because Waylon Mercy, like you said, I think it was what, 95, 96? Something like that. It was during the cartoonish gimmick stage of the World Wrestling Federation. But again, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
In terms of characters. And I actually think there was always a missed opportunity here to bring Waylon Mercy into the Wyatt family as the Uncle Howdy character, or the mentor of Bray. He could have been the cult leader who then groomed and brainwashed Bray Wyatt into doing what he's done. And then there's some sort of this mutiny where Wyatt attacks and murders Mercy, and that's how you get the Wyatt family.
Yeah. I mean, I think I spoke to you. I can't remember if I spoke to you about it on a previous show, whether it was off air. I remember saying to you there were actually interviews on YouTube, interview clips with Dan Spivey, where he actually talks about the Bray Wyatt character and the similarities between the two. And I loved some of the stuff he says. And I do get that feeling that he was very much open to a collaboration of some sorts. And also, speaking of collaborations, someone's actually remixed Bray Wyatt's original theme with Waylon Mercy's theme. And it works. It fits perfectly. It's merged. I'll link it to you.
Brilliant.
Honestly, it's really good. But yeah, it's a shame that was a missed opportunity. And I'm with you exactly with that direction, where they could have had kind of Waylon Mercy kind of bring these guys together, and then it's sort of overthrowing the Emperor type thing, the leader, and Bray takes over
I
that
think the one
mantle.
thing, yeah, I think the one thing about the Wyatt family, because they did it in such a way of debuting them, it was such a clever storytelling narrative of these really kind of, weird psychological promos with the rocking chair and the break in TV that we've become so accustomed to now with the Fiend and the Wyatt Six. But the original incarnation of the Wyatts, the Luke Harper, the Eric Rowan, the NXT, they scared the living bejesus out of people because, they're coming out with the sheep masks
Yeah.
and Wyatt holding the lantern, rocking on the chair. You didn't know at this point whether Wyatt was an in-ring performer or whether he was just the organizer, the orchestrator, and Rowan and Harper were the soldiers going in to do
Mm.
battle. And there was this cult like way of believing everything that Rotunda was saying on those promos. He just had
Mm.
this charisma that you hadn't seen in professional wrestling at this level for
No.
many years. I mean, you
No.
talk about Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass. You talk about The Rock. You talk about the game Triple H. You talk about The Undertaker being good on the mic, and they are. This was a totally different level
Mm.
to them. The way that he just slowly, in that southern drawl, kind of got the point out to,
Yeah.
follow me and the buzzards, and it was beautiful. It was just amazing. And the fact that he created these narratives himself, this wasn't WWE creative, this was Rotunda. This was all coming out of the mind, which scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
But
totally with you on that. I literally the very first um, time where we saw Bray really talk about who the character was, about following him, this, as you said, the cult like thing about him, it was hard not to be drawn in. Like, it literally captivated you. And when I touch on when I said about it reminded me of
yeah,
Jake Roberts. Like, it was, and this would happen for many years afterwards. Whenever um, the camera you would zoom in on Bray's face, and he would like literally stare through your soul. And he had this thing that Jake had, which was where he could almost whisper speak, and that with the intensity fixated you. Like when he would do like when he'd look, and it'd just be like the new face of fear.
mm,
It's like this creepy, like,
yeah, yeah,
and it literally I'm getting goosebumps now
yeah.
just like thinking about it. And it takes, for someone who looks so uncomfortable was Husky Harris, like you just thought, this guy can't talk on the mic, this is going to be a big problem for him. To see this, I mean, it's
How?
night and day. It's mind blowing.
How do you do it? How? I mean, I'm an actor. I'm an
I
amateur actor.
Yeah,
I've done things. You've been in the business. I've been in the
yeah.
business. How do you? And I've not seen this done as well as what Rotunda did. How do you just go like that? I'm going from this really
Okay,
shy, nervous, can't talk personality
yeah,
to this game-changing,
yeah.
amazing on the mic promo talker.
So I let you to say, obviously, when we had COVID and we had the lockdown, I created the Kieran Cross alter
Yes.
ego character.
Yeah.
Now, I did a promo video, which has never seen the light of day. I've still got it. I may share it with you privately at some point, and you can give me the feedback on it. Which only one person has seen, and that's the person that filmed it. And he, like, literally was gobsmacked. Like, I didn't realize. It was almost like my body when I was doing it. I took a lot of pain, frustration, anger, sorrow, all these emotions that I'd had over time. I mean, I was going through a dark
Yeah.
place at that time anyway.
Yeah.
And I channeled it into this despicable, despicable being, where I took truths, but I molded the narrative to fit what I wanted it to. And then you let it out. You forget that, you're not talking to the world, to all these people. You are talking, almost directing it to the people you need to listen, and you need to get it away as such that if you can keep that mindset, you can switch into it. But you go to a dark place mentally when you're doing it, and I think that might be why it worked for Windham, was because, as you said earlier, about he looked disinterested, he looked lost, like he'd given up. There was a lot of clear frustration and with what it was going on with that early stage of his career, that I think he used that as his fuel. Creates this being in his mind, and then it's like, I'm now in a position of power. I'm going to have this like cult thing. I'm going to have followers. I'm going to have people that are going to buy into what I'm selling here. And this is a way of trying to put it out there to the people that held you back, that told you no, that held you back creatively, that maybe ridiculed you and put you in uncomfortable positions, where you're turning around and you've switched it right round and have been like, I'm the one in control now. This is what you've created. It's kind of saying, this is your fault. What I become, the destruction I'm going to cause, the unrest and unsettling that I cause, it's on you.
Yeah.
You created this, not me, kind of thing.
And now you're going to pay the piper.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think with, using your own personal experiences of things you've been through, and if you create in a dark character that you want to be believable and want to come across as a threat, you do it. I mean, you have to be very careful for the sake of your own mental health, but you have to sometimes tap into your past experiences of the darkest things you've been through, and you need to use it as a power as opposed to something that has held you back or caused you a lot of grief over the years. So I think, I'm not saying that is what happened, but I think that probably would make sense.
He definitely tapped into that, but we do know that he also did suffer from mental health problems, as has been well documented in the Bray Wyatt documentary that came out a while ago. I just think that one of the things that, I'm going to be controversial now, and I think I'm going to say something, and not many people are going to like this. The biggest mistake I think they made with Bray and the Wyatts was moving them to the main roster. In NXT, they were pushed right. They had creative freedom. They could do what they want. You got that character time. You had that ability to tell these long, slow burning stories, which is how the Wyatts worked. But when you go to the main roster, it's boom, PLE, boom, PLE, boom, PLE, boom, PLE, Raw, SmackDown every week. And then they had a habit of doing this with NXT talent, and I'm not necessarily saying it happens as much now, but Adam Rose is a good example of talents that are misused on main roster. McMahon didn't like the gimmick. Killer Cross being a prime example. They made him look like a Martian when he came up, right? Or
they called him into like some sort of gladiator thing, and it just didn't work.
Adam Rose, when he came up, it didn't work.
To be fair, though, the Adam Rose gimmick, I don't think was it, because there are some gimmicks that aren't built for longevity, and Adam Rose was one of them. That's why I said, if what they could have done was had a little bit of fun with Adam Rose. And then because they turned Adam Rose heel anyway, but it didn't work with the character of Adam Rose. They should have switched him back to the Leo Kruger. I think that might have worked.
Yeah, but unless he'd been paired up with Wyatt, I don't think that would have worked anyway. It would have been a very he at that point he needed someone to talk for him, and I think shoving him with Wyatt would have worked. The problem with the Wyatt family on the main roster was McMahon and Bruce Pritchard got their claws into the group, and they started doing this NWO thing, right? What do I mean by that? They added Braun Strowman into the group. They added Bryan Danielson into the group. Yes, it was a storyline, but the biggest thing was when they released. Well. Randy. Well, we'll get on that in a second.
Yeah.
The biggest thing though was when they released Luke Harper. And when they split them, when they split the Wyatts, and you had Rowan and Harper going on their own as a tag team, that didn't work because fans weren't interested
No,
in the tag team. They
it
were
was
interested in the
bizarre.
Wyatts.
Yeah, because it was bizarre, wasn't it? Because they they split Harper and Rowan from Bray, and then they split Harper and Rowan, and then you had the whole Survivor Series thing, when it with the Team Authority versus the Team WWE, which led to Sting's debut in the
Yeah,
WWE. But Rowan come out as a face and was on the opposite team to Harper. It was weird,
it's
and
again, it's
it
not
didn't
knowing what
work.
the it's not knowing what the creative
And
is
then they
and
did that whole
flying on the
thing
seat of
with
your pants.
Rowan, when it? Do you remember when he come out? Used to come out with holding that cage, and it was like, "What's that thing in the cage?" And it turned out to be this spider thing, and it was just like, "What the hell's that all
Well,
about?" You know?
I mean, that reminds me of Joker Sting in TNA though, when he was
Yeah.
doing the creative authority and he used the network rep and he walks around with the cage
Oh,
and it was an eagle or something and it flew. You mentioned Randy Orton.
yeah.
All right, so this was the end of the Wyatts, right? And I think at this point, it's what it needed
Mm.
because Randy Orton joined the group. It was storyline. He was always going to turn on the Wyatt family. You could see
Oh, well,
it.
yeah. Of
You
course.
could see it. But it meant really the no going back part. It was the burning of the Wyatt compound. And
Mm.
I don't think there had been a scene in professional wrestling as shocking as that since the Pillman Austin gun incident
Yeah.
in 1997 because that was that was more than a storyline. That was the culling of a character. That was the killing of a vision. Do you know what I mean? There's no
Yeah,
coming
I
back
mean,
from that.
well, this is the thing, because what I loved about this was, I mean, we saw, like, for example, when the Undertaker was set to wrestle Bray at WrestleMania 31, and they had the whole, um, the build up of all of that, where obviously Bray was saying, calling the Undertaker, like, basically, you're not, you're not the Phenom anymore. I'm the new face of fear. It's me, all about me now. Where you would have this thing, like, I think the Undertaker did that thing with the lightning strike, and it set Bray's rocking chair on fire, and Bray's sort of like in the corner, and he's laughing, like really menacingly laughing at it. But when the Wyatt compound burns, it's the first time you saw Bray Wyatt with vulnerability.
Yeah,
It was like everything, his visions, his belief, everything that he held dear was going up in smoke. But instead, and this is what I did like, but again, it's the execution and Vince not believing enough in it. Like, when we said goodbye to the compound, it then eventually gave birth to the Firefly Funhouse. Whereas, like, the entities, these things that were part of the Wyatt compound had been brought into this new environment that was born in Bray's mind, the Firefly Funhouse. Then you've got the recruitment of Alexa Bliss. Now, I liked the way that they dealt with Alexa, and full credit to Alexa, because she always played that role within the Wyatts and her relationship with Bray superbly. And what I love now is, even though Wyndham's sadly no longer with us, they're still always, every so often, teasing that relationship of her and the White
yeah.
Six. That thing, like, they've not forgotten that long term storytelling side of things.
Let,
It's,
I mean, we're going to touch on Alexa in a minute
yeah.
because she was a massive part of this rejuvenation, if you will, of Bray Wyatt. You talk about the Funhouse. I remember watching Monday Night Raw and seeing the the first vignette
Mm.
and going, "What in the blue hell is this?" You see Bray Wyatt in a hair in a bun, in a red sweater that looks like Mr. Rogers. You know, it, and it was like, "What is going on?"
Mm.
And then you saw, you saw the puppets, and and I remember calling it on TS on TWS, and we were doing that, and it was like, what in the hell have I just watched? I don't know if I like it. And then the next vignette came on and it was like, oh, okay. And then you started hearing the "Let me in,
Yeah, the
let
let
him
me
in,"
in. Yeah,
and then they started doing that viral campaign, and then more Funhouse, and they were getting every time the Funhouse appeared, they were getting darker. And what I loved about it was the announcers never referenced it. It,
no,
it it was like they didn't see it. It was just for us at home.
yeah, yeah. And I
It
loved
was
it.
it was masterful.
And we got Adam Pearce as Mr. Posty.
I forgot that.
Yes, we got Adam Pearce as Mr. Posty, which I loved the fact that when it was, I think, the anniversary of Bray's passing, he actually posted the photo of him as Mr. Posty, and it's
Yeah.
like he's never forgotten that. But what really got me suckered into this whole Firefly Funhouse was a couple of things. First one was all the puppets. Obviously, you had Abby the Witch.
Yeah.
Huskus Pig to reference Husky
I
Harris.
love that.
Loved it. Mercy the Buzzard was a call to Waylon Mercy, even with literally a miniature replica
Yeah.
of Waylon
It was
Mercy's Hawaiian
brilliant.
shirt. Fantastic. And Rambling Rabbit. And what really suckered me in, and I loved Rambling Rabbit. I found him hilarious. The way, especially when he was pro John Cena, that was hilarious. Was when you would have Bray being all smiley and he's like, "Hi kids," waving all this, and then all of a sudden, and then he'd be like, all you have to do is let him in, and then he would just go serious, and then you have the little flashes of what the Fiend could be, and then he would just switch it back into bye, bye,
Yowie
like,
wowie.
yeah, and it
Yowie
would just be
wowie.
like literally, I was at that point. I'm just like, look, Window, whatever you're selling, I'm just going to keep buying, man,
I
because
mean,
I'm
it
sold
was
on you.
Jericho has said Bray was a creative faucet. He was overflowing with ideas, and the Funhouse were just this. They were a masterclass, weren't they, in psychological horror? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what, and I always think they missed a trick here. If WWE movies were still going, they missed a trick, right?
Mm,
This was a horror film waiting to be made. You know, the children's TV host then switching to this deranged serial killer, going after the kids, massacring them and all that type of thing. Very dark, but
mm.
brilliant. The problem with the Funhouse and the problem with the Fiend was this: the WWE. Because Wyndham, I mean, this was his creative vision, right? He did this. He was Paul Heyman for what he was to Roman Reigns. Wyndham was this to Bray Wyatt. But he was very slow. He took his time.
Mm.
It was very methodical. It was very, I'm not going to rush this. I'm going to build this like we're in the 80s and we don't have 16 pay-per-views, sorry, PLEs. That felt wrong saying the word pay-per-view there. Oh, be quiet, Siri. Having, 16
Yeah.
PLEs in a year and it didn't work. And McMahon didn't like it. And what happened was you had to kind of claw in these feuds and they didn't work. Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell, was awarded an award from WrestleCrap called the Gooker Award,
Mm.
basically meaning it was crap.
Yeah.
But let's be clear, this isn't a reflection on Bray being a bad performer.
No.
It's an issue of a creative visionary being too creative for the WWE and them not knowing how to channel and focus everything that he's putting out.
Yeah. The most telling thing as well is after he passed, when the Bray Wyatt documentary that was released,
Yes,
which is extremely moving.
poignant to
The
say the
yeah,
least. Yeah,
the behind the scenes footage of Bray getting very frustrated because he's been instructed on what to do while he's dressed as the Fiend, and he keeps saying, "It doesn't work if I can't. It needs to be like this," and they're not listening to him. And it's like I'm getting angry watching it, just going, "Look, this guy created it. No one knows this entity more than him. He is the one who created it. Let him do it. As long as he's not crossing any lines
yeah.
and that, then let him be. Let him do it."
I was always surprised that they let the Funhouse on TV Because bearing in mind at this point, they're still TVPG.
Yeah.
And this is anything but PG. This is messing with the mind. And kids are watching this. So I'm really surprised the network and the WWE and the shareholders let it on. But we mentioned Husky Harris at the top of the show.
Mm.
And I think one of the lines I said was you could see in his eyes that he was dead, that he was done. Towards the end of that run with WWE before the release, because we haven't even touched on that yet. When you saw Bray Wyatt, he was gone. He
Mm.
was he was Husky Harris again. That fire had gone because they were stifling him so much until WrestleMania 36. We're in
Yeah.
COVID. It's the cinematic masterpiece. It's the Funhouse against John Cena, which I remember watching it going, what the hell is going on? Because 1 minute you're at Saturday night's main event. You've then got Bray Wyatt as an NWO Wolfpack member, which you
Mm.
would have loved. You've then got, it's like, what the hell is going on? But give credit to Cena. He sold it like a pro.
He did. I remember watching it. When I watched it when it was live, I didn't like it. I was like,
You and a
this is
lot of
just, yeah,
people
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
like it.
But I went and watched it again the following day. It was before, I can't remember if it was before night two or whether it was on night two, but it was earlier in the day. Went back and watched it, and I was sort of dissecting it because it was a lot to take in when it was happening live. And in the end, I actually was just like, do you know what? This is actually genius. Like, this is incredible.
Do you know what?
Um,
Do you know what made it work? No audience.
no,
Sometimes, when you do these empty arena matches,
yeah,
and they've done it a few times, right? It's like you're missing something. You're missing the crowd. It didn't need it.
yeah,
And this is before, the ultimate deletion match in TNA at the Hardy compound, the cinematic match. This is before, obviously, AJ Styles versus The Undertaker or that really awful cinematic Money in the Bank
oh,
match
yeah,
going up the top of Titan Towers. This was just, it was a movie.
yeah. It was a short film. And like you said, a lot of credit goes to John Cena for making it work. Because obviously, I think Cena, that a lot of Bray's peers, they believed in him. We all know how loved he was. I remember when they put him, which I thought was one of the most bizarre, unlikeliest of pairings, when they paired him with Matt Hardy as a tag team when he was going through the Eater of Worlds version of Bray. Um, the one thing I absolutely hated with Bray's career when he did the Fiend was when he did that. It was a WrestleMania. Yeah, it was the last WrestleMania he did um, when he was facing Randy Orton. When they did the whole burnt Fiend
Yeah.
gimmick, and you just see a scene where he's sort of walking through the tunnel to come out, and then all of a sudden, like the screen just like sort of swipes, and then all of a sudden he's gone from being burnt to back to like the feet. It was just it for me didn't work. And to be fair, that match with Randy didn't work. And I think that there was an element of by then I think Bray was struggling, and then obviously you had the whole thing with Alexa Bliss come out of the box and the black stuff pouring down her face, like you know, uh,
I mean, you mentioned Alexa earlier on, and I think we're at the
yeah,
right point to talk about her.
yeah,
The pairing with him and Alexa I enjoyed to a degree, but I actually thought at some points in this, Alexa was overtaking Bray. It became more at this point about Alexa and the doll, and which I can't remember the name of, and what she did. I mean, she was involved in that match, like you said, with Randy. She was involved in the promos. It just
yeah.
it felt maybe like it went on a little bit too long with Alexa. And I think the mistake they did was they carried it on after they released Bray. Lily. Lily, that's right. The doll's
Yeah.
called Lily. But when they were together, it was amazing seeing, this husband and wife style, you know, cult leader to cult member.
Mm.
What I wish they would have done with Alexa is gone full hog
Yeah,
and not kept her as Alexa, actually turned her into Sister Abigail.
yeah, I'm with you on that. For me, it had to be one of two ways. It was either, as you said, go whole hog and turn her into that, or it had to be when she was what appeared to be draining the Fiend's powers. I think that had to be the kill switch to kill off the Fiend character, because
Agree.
the Fiend character wasn't working as a longevity character.
No.
It run its course. We knew how bad it was. Things had got. I mean, that Hell in a Cell match he had with Seth Rollins, which was absolutely panned. It was terrible, and the match had to get stopped because the Fiend had brutalized Seth so much, and it was like, but this is Hell in a Cell. Like, matches don't get pulled off like that. It's pinfall submission. It's simple as that. So, it was very poorly executed. The lighting was terrible. And I really felt for Windham, because I think that really epitomized where WWE were really sort of stifling
Yeah.
Windham and making him go in direction he didn't want to go. He didn't want to take it. And
I agree.
obviously,
Yeah.
after that WrestleMania match, he got his release, which shocked the hell out of me. But I was really torn, because I was kind of like, oh, they've messed this up and they really don't know what they've got rid of here. And this was all on WWE. It was all on WWE. But there was a little part of me that was kind of thinking, but what if he goes elsewhere and flourishes, gets full creative over this, and we get to see the visions of what he always intended? Maybe we'll still get to see that. And I remember, obviously, and yes, I'm going to mention me meeting him at WrestleCon
Sure.
in 2022. It was the day before WrestleMania 38. And at this point, he'd already been released. And there was a lot of rumors saying that he was going to show up potentially that weekend at Ring of Honor. It actually turned out to be Samoa Joe that showed up on that show. And I remember saying to him, that obviously what a creative genius he was. I said, it's so, strange to relate to a lot of the darkness that you're portrayed in, like with Bray. And I said, someone like me who goes through a lot of things, I mean, it's nice to have something to. And I said, no, I'm a big horror fanatic anyway. So having that in common with with Windham was, so we kind of get that. And I remember saying to him, like, wherever you go from here, whatever you do, I said, please don't let history repeat itself. Like, go somewhere where you can be you and you can let everything out and show us everything that you wanted us to see. And we hugged, and he was a super sweet guy. And I said, do you have any clues where you're going to end up next? And all he said was, he was like, patience. He said, like, all will be revealed. I was like, okay. And I was actually expecting him to show up somewhere that weekend, and he didn't. And it's going on and on and on until the following year. I'm at WrestleMania, not following year, sorry, WrestleMania 40. I'm at Monday Night Raw. SmackDown. SmackDown. It was either SmackDown or Raw, either the Friday or the Monday, but either way in Philly. And the Jefferson Airplane White Rabbit thing comes on, which they started to do off camera. And I'm like, oh, Jefferson Airplane. Oh, a bit of White Rabbit. Like, Alice in Wonderland's my favourite Disney movie. Just throwing it out there. And I was like, oh, I love this song. And I was like, that was random. Why did they play the clip of this? And it stuck with me, but I didn't think too much on it. I was just thinking it was random. Maybe they were just using it to test the sound system. I don't know. And then, like, the weeks that followed, YouTube's going crazy, where people are uploading these clips from inside the arenas all over the world, going, "Oh, Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Airplane," and then we start getting the White Rabbit teases, and then people start linking it. And do you remember when we was doing Squared Circle? I was fully obsessed with,
oh god, yeah,
working all this like out, and we were talking about this.
It became a full-blown segment.
It was, and to be honest, I loved it. Like, what they were doing, you'd scan these QR codes that would randomly pop up. You'd take you to, like, this little mini game or mini clip, and that was brilliant. And then you knew. And then the biggest sign was when they did the poster for Extreme Rules, and you could see in the at the side, you could see one of Bray's lanterns.
Do you remember though
man.
when he actually returned? And
Yeah. Oh,
it was anticipated at Money in the Bank, and then all of a sudden the lights went out,
mm,
that door appeared, and he walked through, and that was how. And that you got to give Hunter credit on this, right? Because this was a Hunter storyline,
yeah.
and he's very good at these debuts in the last few minutes. He did it with CM Punk at Survivor
Yeah.
Series, and it sends you off. The pop that
Insane.
he got because the characters appeared, and then
That was so well done.
he walked through. But again, as we've said all the way through this show, that's the creative genius of Windham Rotunda. And I think we are going to touch on it in just a second, but I think this run would have been very different because he had a creative partner in Triple H
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
understood Bray, who
Absolutely.
understood Wyndham.
Absolutely.
And
And
that's
I
the
think
difference.
that was reflected as well with the Wyatt Six debut when there was that carnage where there's bodies lying all over the floor. And that I just think the problem with the Wyatt Six is I just think there's this element of they are misfits. It is hard to really place them. I know they're tag champions at the moment and that, but it's really hard to place them. It's also very strange that we're not seeing Taylor, Uncle Howdy, in any in-ring competition at the moment. I don't know if that's still
Yeah.
ready to come. Nikki Cross isn't getting him having matches either, really.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering if there's this element of kind of like we like this YS16, but it's missing Wyndham,
So
it's missing Bray.
this is where I am with the
Yeah,
Wyatt Six. I liked the concept of it, but I don't like it.
no,
And the reason I don't like it, it's very simple. To me, I get why Taylor Rotunda it wanted to do it. I get it. And that last scene at the end of that Being Bray documentary that they released in the States, you knew it was coming. To me, it feels like a cash cow. It's meant to be a tribute to Bray, but it doesn't work. It's Bo Dallas, Taylor Rotundo, Uncle Howdy, whatever you want to call him. He's not Wyndham. He doesn't have that same level of charisma or psychotic personality. Do you get what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I mean,
As Bray does. And I think the problem with it is, yes, they called Eric Rowan and Luke Harper Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, right? It's still Joe Gacy. It's still Nikki Cross. It's still Dexter Loomis. The only one who's different is Uncle Howdy. But we still have no idea what happened to them. We still have no idea why Nikki Cross suddenly changed from Nikki ASH to this demented witch Nikki Cross. We still don't know why Joe Gacy went this way. We still don't know why Dexter Loomis
mm,
became the
I,
Dexter Loomis in here.
yeah.
And we don't also understand where Rowan fits into this because they just didn't do the backstory. And
Well,
that's the
yeah.
mistake.
Well, I don't know. I think it's to keep that mystique there because I know that in the lead up when they were teasing it and whatnot, because there was a lot of video clips that went out and all these clues and stuff, and they when it came to Rowan, they it was all this
Yeah.
that voice that we would end up
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
Taylor Bo, but it was all this stuff about he had lost his family, like and that Bray's gone,
Yeah.
Harper's gone,
Yeah.
and but it's time for him to come home, sort of thing. With Nikki Cross, they did these little weird like camera clips from inside and outside her house. They actually had her husband, Killian Dane was, or inside the house, and
Yeah.
it was almost as though someone was
Yeah.
stalking it, almost referring to maybe was Nikki Cross kidnapped and turned into this being. The Dexter one I don't quite get. I know that they sort of teased the other one with Joe Gacy being because he had that meltdown on NXT and he walked away from his own little gathering,
Yeah.
his own little cult.
Yeah.
And went off and they were sort of teasing saying,
Yeah.
that they mentioned all that. So it's like they've given snippets of
but
what happened to them, why, but they haven't elaborated on
yeah,
exactly
and
how it's all gone down, like how they found Uncle Howdy, like how did they come together?
that's the thing I think I'm missing with it. That's why I can't buy into it,
Yeah.
right? Because it seems to be, and I use the term cash cow in
Mm.
the most respective way. It seems to be we're trying to capitalize on the popularity of Wyatt, and don't get me wrong, Clash in Paris, seeing the entrance for the Wyatt Six with the fireflies over the
Mm.
stage was incredible, and I wish I'd been there live to have seen that. But it's not resonating, and I think the other big thing they've done wrong with this, and we touched on it earlier with Alexa Bliss. Where's Bliss?
That's what I was just about to say. Is I think if they do pull the trigger on Alexa having something to do with the White Six at some point, I'm assuming it'll probably happen soon once her and Charlotte tag team thingy is done. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they actually use this White Six thing and her going to the White Six to actually have something to do with her then having a rivalry with
With
Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte? Yeah,
Um, I think a lot of the telling will be in when they pull if and when they pull the trigger on that, because Alexa is the only one out of all of those, despite Taylor, Bo being Wyndham's brother. She's the only one that's got any actual direct links to
yeah,
the original
yeah.
Bray Wyatt and Fiend. I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of a, not necessarily like a takeover, but if there's going to be a mix up, if there's going to be like changes within the White Six because she's going to come in. I don't know whether or not she's going to switch back into this. Like something's going to happen. She's going to get switch back into it where she actually maybe calls out and says, what are you doing? You're not leading these group to the way Bray always saw it and whatnot. And, and she maybe, says about, I took his power away. I took the Fiend's power away, and maybe there could be like almost like a battle of control,
Well,
something we could see between Alexa and Bo. Who knows?
I was just going to say, what if, and again, I hate fantasy booking, but it's something that we end up doing on the show. What if they're in a match on SmackDown, Alexa and Charlotte are in a match, and then Bray's voice goes over the PA system?
Don't do that to me, Andy.
But can you
Oh,
can you just imagine Bray's voice? And I mean, you can use AI to rebuild it if you need to, but
it'd be easy to do, and I think the
A
Windham family would be,
would be fine. But Bray's
the
voice
Rotunda family would be
saying,
happy with it.
Bray's voice saying, "Let me in,
Oh,
let me in," and then you see her reacting to that, and every week, it happens a bit more, and then the Wyatt Six are in action, and Alexa suddenly starts coming down to the ring in that sort of trance that she used to do with Lily, or Lily just suddenly pops up at
mm.
ringside. But again, you're hearing Bray, "The time is now,"
I mean, she's
or
still got it. I mean,
I
with
mean,
this,
but
yeah,
you just think, you're watching and you don't know when it's going to appear, because that's the great thing about this World Tag Team run they've got. They were on
yeah,
NXT. You could be watching NXT on the CW network and you hear Bray's voice. You could be watching Monday Night Raw on Netflix and Bray's voice. You don't know. Can you
no.
imagine what the pop of the
Oh,
audience would
it would
be?
be absolutely insane. Of course, it would. I think with Alexa as well. I mean, there was a viral clip of her at WWE World this past WrestleMania weekend where there was I think it was a father and his little girl, and the little girl was dressed as a little Alexa, and the father was dressed as the Fiend,
Yeah.
and they were doing the at WWE World where you can do the entrances and that, and they did the Fiend's one, and Alexa herself actually did the entrance with them. She came out, did the trance, and what was really sweet as well was not only was she like really, really looking after like shadowing this little girl dressed as little Alexa, but I think it's either the older brother or the dad. He addressed as a Fiend with the title around his neck, put out his hand to Alexa, and Alexa actually takes his hand like that, and they walk the entire the aisle hand in hand like that. And I watched that, and I was like, I don't know these people, and they're getting me
It was
emotional. It
amazing,
was
wasn't it? I've
beautiful.
seen that.
And Alexa
Yeah.
as well. I mean, she's still using the Sister Abigail DDT. She's still dressing like similar to how she did when her and Bray sort of aligned. She's still got that about her, but she's also, if you've noticed, she still has these little moments of the intense sort of
Yeah.
trance like stares. She did it to Charlotte on NXT Homecoming.
But
That
it's also,
you know,
but she's also doesn't really have any creative direction at the moment.
No.
So it would work. But let's move on because Windham Rotunda's life tragically was cut short on August 24th of 2023. Um, he was 36, died from a heart attack. Bearing in mind that we are um, at this point we are smack bang in the middle of the pandemic. We're in the COVID era, um, and the circumstances beyond the passing are pretty hard. Law enforcement records indicate that in March of that year, he'd been diagnosed with COVID-19. It exacerbated a pre existing heart condition, which meant that, and a direct quote from the report, a weak lower part of his heart. Just 1 week before his death, he'd been hospitalized for a heart issue and was advised by doctors to wear a self activating defib. This effectively would have ended the career of Bray Wyatt, Windham Rotunda in the ring, because you can't compete with a self-activating defib. Um, but at the time of his passing, the device was found in a vehicle parked in his driveway. Jodo Offerman, former WWE ring announcer, and his fiance found him not breathing and turning blue after his alarm had been sounding for over an hour. What was moving about this? I mean, let's first of all, heartbreaking. You know, his fiance, he's got young kids, and he's 36 years old. Um, what is amazing about this, and something that I find so respectful and actually proud to be involved in wrestling, was the shockwaves and the level of respect that went through the community. I mean, you had tributes pouring in from people like The Rock, The Nature Boy, Kane, obviously Braun Strowman, Alexa Bliss, even AEW released a statement mourning his loss. The August 25th edition of SmackDown opened with a 10-bell salute for the double header because it was not only was Windham Rotunda passed away, but Terry Funk passed away a day earlier. Rowan and Strowman were present for the tribute. And we go back to August of 2023. We go back to the first public gathering of that size at Wembley Stadium for AEW All In.
Mm-hmm.
And that moment, I think it was 8:05 or something like that. And it was a Facebook petition and a Facebook group getting it moving. And every single person in Wembley Stadium got the torch on their phone and the fireflies lit up Wembley Stadium. I've got a picture of it. I've got a video of it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about it now, and I got goosebumps then,
Yeah.
and I've got goosebumps now. That is a moment that personally I will never forget. Just
Yeah.
seeing 80 odd thousand fans share that one moment. That one moment didn't matter if you were an AEW fan or a WWE fan. At that one moment, you were a wrestling fan and you came together to pay your respect for an absolute bloody Hall of Fame legend, which is a travesty that he is not in the Hall of Fame as yet. He should have gone in 2024.
Yeah, but there was talks of that. I know Mike Rotunda that spoke about it, and they came to the agreement that it was a little too soon. They felt it was too soon.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, I get it from a fan standpoint. I mean, you want him to be honoured and cemented in that place. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. We know that, and it'll probably happen within the next, I reckon, 2-3 years. I think it won't be too far off. Yeah, I remember, being at All In, the House of Black. Wore attire that was a tribute. I think Buddy Matthews, he had the lantern or something. Brought the lantern out, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I remember, the Hall of Fame last year. Obviously, Bray's dad, Mike, and Barry Windham, they got inducted together. Their tag
US
team,
Express.
US Express, yeah, and they both pay tribute to him, and they actually had everyone. They wanted a moment where everyone showed off the Fireflies
Yeah.
on their phones, and also WrestleMania as well. Both times they actually had a moment where they had the lights out, the Fireflies went out, and they played Bray's music entrance theme. That was beautiful. I've got a video of that as well. I had goosebumps on that one as well. The tributes have been absolutely beautiful. And if you just indulge me for a second, I just want to tell one short story from, I think it was 2013. Remember, we spoke about it before when Butlins over here in the UK, down in Minehead, they used to have annual WWE shows. And we had a main event. It was Rowan and Harper versus CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. It was shortly before Punk left. And Bray was sitting ringside in his chair, and I was sitting front row with my ex-wife, my stepdaughter, and my son, who was only like 2 years old at the time. And he was asleep through some of it. And I was really torn because I was very much riding the Wyatt frenzy train, but I also absolutely loved Punk and Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson at the time. But I thought, you know, I'm going to cheer on the new guys and that. And I can't remember what we was chanting, but there was Bray walking round, because where we were was front row on the corner, facing where the ring steps are, on the first left-sided turnbuckle, which would have been camera side if it was recorded. And Bray's come out and he's got the like the butcher's apron on and all like the leather thing on, and he's got his fedora on, and he's come out, and I'm chanting to the Wyatts to basically do as much damage and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I was shouting out to Harper. I was like, put Punk's head on the steel steps, stamp on his head like that. And Windham, who's literally right in front of me, just turned him and he just went, "You're sick, man. I love it," like that. Oh, like, and I was like, yeah, like the adrenaline's coming on, proper marking out. And I didn't realise how big Bray was going to become at that. I always cherished that moment. And what I loved as well was Rowan's sheep mask was on that, hanging on that corner post, and I took photos of it. After the main event had finished, Tony Chimmel was in the ring and he sort of thanked everyone and said, "Oh, we'll be back," and whatnot. And Tony just come down and he was sort of saying hello to some of the fans. And I just said, Tony, I shook his hand. I went, Tony, I said, any chance I can have the mask? And he looked and he went, "Yeah, sure." He stepped up, took it off and gave it to me. And then my ex-wife took a photo of me back in the hotel room with me standing there, smiling, holding the sheep mask, which I still have, and it's packed away somewhere. But having that moment there I had my moment years later with Windham, that one-on-one with the person Windham, but I had a moment with Bray Wyatt. That moment, that acknowledgement of having Bray Wyatt saying, "You're sick, man. I love it," like that. That lived with me forever. I've got goosebumps, and I don't want to get emotional.
Amazing.
And I'll take that.
Amazing.
I'll take that.
All right, we're coming to the end of the legacy of Windham Rotunda. So I'm gonna give Stefan the last word, but I'm gonna go out with my own thing. And I'm just gonna say, Dan, I've written this. I am gonna read it because I wanted to make sure it was right. But I've written this. All right, here we go. This is my last words on Windham Rotunda. His legacy is not just a chapter in the history books; it's an active, an ongoing force in professional wrestling. He's described as wrestling's horror icon, a performer who incorporated horror into the world of wrestling in a way that no one before him ever could or would. He fundamentally redefined what a pro wrestling character could be, moving beyond the traditional stereotypes or archetypes to create this complex psychological and multimedia storytelling device. He proved that a character could be a long-form narrative that actually blurs the lines between performer and artist, which prompts a paradigm shift in how fans and the industry approach character work. And even though I may not be fully behind it, the continuation of his creative vision by his family is a testament to the enduring nature of his influence. His brother Taylor, returning to the WWE as Uncle Howdy, is now leading this faction, the Wyatt Six, a direct continuation of what Bray's vision for that group would be. That group portraying the real life versions of the Funhouse puppets. The adoption of his Firefly's entrance, a fan driven tribute, a clear sign that his connection with the audience remains as powerful as ever. But his career stands as a benchmark for creative risk taking and character immersion. He became a legend and a champion not by winning championships, which he did, but through his revolutionary creative contribution, which continues to this day to shape the future of professional wrestling. Windham Rotunda, Hall of Fame or not Hall of Fame, is a certifiable genius, wrestling legend, and wrestling icon.
Beautiful. 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 Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, love it. Top that. Yeah. No, I haven't written mine. Mine's just mine's without sounding too soft. Mine's from the heart, and that. Windham, I want to thank you for your dedication and resilience on trying to show the world who Bray Wyatt truly was. The creative genius, the darkness that you wanted to show everyone just how beautiful storytelling can truly be, though never given the full reins to do so, and unfortunately never being able to see your visions and your plans all the way through. I want to thank you for being the kind-hearted gentleman you were to myself and other fans around the world that were lovely just to have just a moment of your time. For being one of the first professional wrestlers to tap in to a psyche which was very different, unique, but very relatable. And I want to thank you for those moments where you really, really suckered me in to make me remember exactly why I'm a wrestling fan, even at times when I fell out of love with wrestling. You always said that in a world for the black and white, you were the color red. I see you in a world full of darkness. You were the lantern that led the light. God rest you. We'll miss you forever. Sleep well, rest in power. Windham Rotunda.
Wow. That was... Yeah. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. Let
Beautiful.
him in. And I think we all did that. That's it for us for this week at Legends and Champions. Thank you for joining us for, wow, what was a very, it went a different way to what I expected, but I think it went well. This legacy, this tribute to Bray Wyatt on Halloween, I don't think we could have picked a better week for this to be released. Good call. Well done. Good pick. Now we have to do the normal bits and pieces because we didn't do it at the start of the show. If you would like to get in contact with us, Celebrate Wrestling, you can do by heading over to social media. Go to Facebook, search for Celebrate Wrestling, answer the questions, and Mike will let you in. There is one rule. It is a no-joke zone. And, of course, you can subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast from. And you can listen to all of us weekly on Celebrate Wrestling. That is Mitch and Dimitri from the alternate commentary table on Saturday, Mike, Dave Meltzer on a Sunday, and of course Stefan and I every week on a Wednesday. Next week we will be back with more Legends and Champions. We are kicking off November in style. We are going to the Survivor Series. We're going to be looking at Survivor Series 1990. Nothing big happened on that pay-per-view. Nothing was
just some guy dressed as an Undertaker, and I wonder what happened to him.
I was talking more about Turkey, but we'll find out more about that next week. Legends and Champions. For Stefan, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
We will see you at the matches. Take care. So long. Bye bye now.